it's neat, isn't it? Today, we have been traveling all the way from Oceania, now taking this session, stopping in the Middle East. And from the Middle East, or actually from Canada, but originally from the Middle East and talking about the Middle East, is Eliane Metni, who is with us right now. She's the director of the International Education Association in Lebanon and a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Toronto. The theme that she would like to share with us is how Bildung brings hope and empowerment in post-conflict context, and more specifically, Lebanon as being the beacon of resilience and innovation in the Middle East while it grapples with a myriad of challenges. And among the efforts to empower refugees, a holistic creative process learning framework centered around Coder Maker has been a huge success. Now, taking us through these concepts and how they are making the difference is Eliane Metni. Please, Eliane, the stage is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me to be part of Bildung. I'm honored to be part of it. It's very special. It was very special to connect with you, Sandra, a while ago when we started the idea, and I was touched because it's at the heart of what I've been trying to do for so many years, and it's important to look at the problem in its context. So the problem of refugees is a huge one internationally. It's not only in Lebanon. There are when we look at the problem of refugees, we think of it in terms of everywhere, but not in a specific place. And so if you look at Lebanon as such, it has in itself so many problems to receive and to host refugees that you wonder, like, how can this problem be incorporated and solved in a holistic way when you have in such a fragile context? So since 75, for example, Lebanon has had its own wars. It has never totally closed its chapters of wars because it's still in post-conflict, but it also has suffered from the financial collapse in 2019. It has had a devastating explosion in August 2020. And you wonder, how are people actually living in Lebanon? How is it actually going to be able to solve the problem of people learning together? How can you build a more cohesive society? If we want to reach Bildung, we need more cohesion. We need more people that learn together. We need connectedness. And that is very difficult to reach in a context such as Lebanon, because of specifically the problem of the political issues around refugees and learning in schools. And I started working at first with refugees in camps and with other organizations, working with heads of organization to incorporate holistic learning. And when I saw the impact, it was so massive. Children were learning so much faster. We would ask the bus driver, like, how do you, like, he said, I need to come up to see what's happening in this class. Kids don't want to leave. And it was such an inspiration, just that moment when he said that this was so different. And we thought we could bring this to schools. And so we took a year to restudy how we were actually going from accompanying after school project to working in schools. And we've designed this framework to work in schools with Lebanese and refugees. And that's what was the heart of the lesson we derived, where we studied children trying to learn together in that holistic framework. And we were lucky because the Ministry of Education allowed this pilot, which was funded by the International Development Research Center in Canada. And it spanned over 4 years, which was great because we were able to do one first round and then a second round, where actually now the impact was so high on children altogether and on teachers that the ministries asked us to actually scale the project. And so what is the framework about, and how does it work, and why is it so important in that context, specifically that Lebanon is reforming its own curriculum? So it's coming at a time which was important, and at the same time it was appreciated because the focus of our work was on teachers. Like, if you want to do an impact on kids, you need to first impact teachers and try and see why are teachers so hanging on to their traditional approaches. Of course, all these problems were stated, mentioned, and we all know them. So you've got a curriculum, you've got little time, you've got old archaic stuff to work with, you have no tools, and you have little preparation time, and you find yourself just swamped by the problem. Violence in class, etc. But the problem was exacerbated because also the Lebanese community was suffering. So besides its problem, it was a context of crisis within a crisis, with the collapse of the economy, the Lebanese society losing its middle class. It was kind of massive. And what we learned from it is that it is important to look at the long-term impact of learning within refugee education. You cannot look at it as just teaching them content and they're going to learn it and just do social and emotional learning. If you go with holistic learning and you take a framework that can really ask students what are they bringing with them, what is it that how can you leverage it, the problems that they're facing, how do they see the world, and to input that into learning, you will find that the learning will be transformed. And so the framework is based on 5 very important elements, which we all know, but we do them separately. And so the first is the self, is exploring your interests. So we ask students to explore their own interests, their motivation, how they're here, where they're heading, the issues, how do they see the world? How do they observe it? What is it that they connect with? Where are their feelings? And that's a very difficult thing in such a situation, because often kids don't want to get there. They're very happy to be inward, they don't speak to others, and that gets them out of their shell slowly in a map, which could be just physical, no tech. And the second element of observing the world is that they notice that they look at things with different eyes, be it the environment, their room, their community, etc. The second very important, after the self and where you're heading and who you are, is the community. And so they explore the concept of community. What does it mean to them, and what it is, and how can they improve it? And what do they see as problems? And because it is common, then they are both in a class, refugees and Lebanese learning together, saying, what is our school community built of? How do we actually improve it? And that's where, as an example, you see kids saying, well, you've been hurt, like you've been bullied. So there's a student who's bullied because she's visually impaired and couldn't see blurred, and she was bullied because people were mocking her every time she would be bumping around others, and they decided to help her address that. So this is a social problem, but they wanted to address with technology. And so then you get to the knowledge building process. All the knowledge that they had to know to be able to solve that problem was part of designing a solution, working with science teacher, technology teacher, empowering them with all that they need to learn. And all this is in parallel with teaching teachers how to design such learning to be able to develop learning outcomes that are powerful both in sciences, social sciences, humanities, technology. So we call it STEAM and STEM, but it's like, how do you actually design it? So we work with teachers to design such learning. And the last part, which is the technology, is making sure that they've got the skills, the initial skills to engage with it. And they've used very simple tools that are, and what's around them. They need to design a solution with what's around them. And they do so, and then share their learning. So the fifth element is the connectedness. So we've worked with 20 schools, and all the schools had to actually share the problem they saw, the solution they wanted to come up with, and then design that share their design in a sharing environment. And that was shared at the Ministry of Education at the end of the process, which was very, very powerful. So the communication is throughout. The teachers learn first, students, they implement with students the design learning, they come up with solution, and then there's a communication and sharing at the end of the year. And the impact was just so powerful over time. So the thing is, how does that change over time? So we did the work with teachers on several years, and now we're working to expand that over with the Ministry of Education on how can you incorporate that into learning in a formal way. And the impact on students and teachers was transformative. So teachers are saying, like, we feel we're reborn, we can see more purpose in what we're doing, we can see our profession with new eyes. And the student was like, I'm not bullied anymore. I've got these simple smart glasses that they've designed, which allows me to know and navigate in around school without people mocking me. And it's amazing to see that students that didn't speak to each other, that were kind of from communities that were like boys, girls don't speak to each other when they're teenager. Syrian students, Lebanese students do not interact out of school for any purpose unless like they're in school together, but there's no purpose to interact. And so this project brought communities to learn together, to find solutions together, brought more social cohesion, and it solved a problem. Not needless to say that one of those children was going to be expelled from school. So they passed their grades. And these experiences are transformative within the community. And it is not only to learn the science of how do you develop it or to learn the technology around it. It's really the holistic part around it, the framework, which was so important. And the students are all successful, and that it transformed that specific school. So as an experience, we're very proud, but we're also happy to be sharing this and to be studying how the framework can grow and be part of learning and not fall into a reductionist approach once it becomes part of schooling. And so for us, this part of holistic learning brings the importance of looking at education in challenging contexts, not only in refugee context, in a different perspective. And it's specifically after conflicts, we always think like they need books, they need technology, we give it, and then deliver the content. And teachers end up as a conveyor belt. And that does not really work. That it's not going to bring what Bildung is. And Bildung is so important in such context because it can empower, it empowers, it gives agency to teachers, it gives agency to students, and it enables them to feel powerful and to feel that they are actually the people that are driving their own destinies. They're making a difference in the world. At the center of the Bildung here was the sense of purpose. Like one of those kids said, you know, my teacher now is asking me to just build this. I just don't see a purpose. And that kid was like 13 years old. And like being able to say such a statement is very powerful. Or a child with whom you're speaking for 2 hours about the experience that got their phones sitting next to them, they've not touched them. They've not like that, their focus on what it has changed in them is very powerful. And the message to the world is we need to look at challenging contexts differently. We need to, because that's where most of the problems are. And that's where if we are able to solve challenging contexts, we're able to have a better world, because we're a connected world. There's no way we can look at things from just one angle and say, we're going to do just the north and the global south are so important to be able to support research in the global south, to be able to empower teachers in the global south if we want learning Bildung to thrive in such context.
Wow, that was very succinct. And of course, in case I forgot to mention, Dr. Metni has a chapter in the book describing this in more detail, including the different phenomena. I was just curious because you mentioned the fifth pillar, which was community, right? So you had
No, the
self,
first is self.
yeah, yeah,
That's the self concept, right? That is at the heart of the beginning, right? The learner centered part. The second is community. That's the me we. So who are we together and how can we solve our problems? The third is knowledge building. That's the importance of connecting with everything that's cognitive, inquiry, driving the question about what they want to do and connecting it with learning outcomes. The third is they need technology. And then the fifth is the communication
communication.
and relatedness. So connecting all this together.
Yeah. Uh, so that's the connecting tissue that, yeah, okay. Now I get it. Thank you so much.
So relatedness. So
Yeah.
the work that I'm doing now is centered around the relatedness.